Hey guys, welcome back to Costa Mesa Regionals. This is round 3. I'm Regina Angley, and I'm joining Kimo Nishimura behind the desk. We've got a fun one for you guys today.
A fire matchup, I would say. Patrick Smith versus Gary Qian. Patrick, he's been doing very well, especially on the West Coast. Throughout his career, he's a regional champion winner. He's gotten second in Anaheim 2 years ago. Pretty consistent top cuts. Day 2 Worlds player in 2016. Gary Qian, I believe, also a Day 2 Worlds player in 2016. Known for using the unorthodox. In Vancouver, we saw him with Alolan Executor, and he's used a bunch of pretty out there kind of stuff. Flygon.
I mean, if you can do it,
Yeah, I mean, when things aren't prepared for, there are times where you can kind of just slip in through the cracks because your team doesn't have a real way to stop this kind of out there unexpected threat.
Yeah. Ooh, and that's kind of cool because if you're a type of player who enjoys using unorthodox things, I think it shows a lot of how your mentality is in terms of how you team build, and then making it, putting together a team that has weird mons is one thing, but then making it work and then getting consistent results is another thing. So having two really well-known players and having two consistent players in this round, in this matchup, especially someone like Patrick who is kind of who kind of runs, those teams that are you would call, I guess, quote unquote standard.
Sure.
So, and in some ways, or they're more archetypes that you see and how to prepare for. Whereas Gary, everyone knows, is super kind of out there with his team.
I mean, even if Patrick's team wasn't super in maybe it'll be a variation of a common archetype, right? But Gary's teams more often are just off the wall. Yeah. They'll have certain aspects of a normal team, right? But the way in which they supplement that is through just completely almost. It's not random, but when you look at it from the outside, it seems that way.
Well, I think that's part of what makes it fun is when you think about this, team preview is half the battle. So when you go into this match thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to expect, and you see Pokemon that are completely unexpected, you're just like, what is going on? What?
That's very important, especially for Game 1, because then you have to take that extra time to learn what's going on, whereas a person or player like Gary is like, oh, well, I see this team. I've seen it a million times. I know exactly what's going to happen.
And I think that's also what makes it fun when you're the one building these kind of unique teams where you're just thinking, okay, I know what my matchups are for this. Excuse me, for this archetype or for this. This is in a way your flowchart or these are your win conditions. And I think the advantage sometimes of having a unique team is you're more set about about what your win conditions are and exactly what you need to do to set up. I think at times there might be more thought that goes into that and kind of understanding, especially we've seen some weird Pokemon already.
Lopunny, Drampa,
the Blacephalon, and now whatever Gary's gonna be bringing to us too. So it'll be fun, like you said, fire. Fire. My bad.
One hot, intense matchup. The intensity of 1,000 burning white hot suns.
All right. All right, and so once again, we've got Gary versus Patrick. They are going to be going into their connection very soon. I'm super kind of excited for this.
Watching Gary's always very amusing. Ooh.
All right, so, and here we go. So on your left side, we've got Gary. We've got the Vivillon, Snorlax, Manectric, Landorus there, and Bronzong and Tapu Fini. And on your right side with Patrick, we have Charizard, Smeargle, Tapu Lele, Landorus there, and Kartana and Snorlax.
It's a pretty interesting team. Let's start with Patrick, just because the Smeargle is sort of one of the newer additions to the Charizard offensive archetype, especially in conjunction with Tapu Lele. You're trying to create a situation where you can throw out spores a lot, and Tapu Lele, Charizard have a very natural, nice offensive synergy. The Fairy Fire especially, but the Psychic Terrain boosted moves, the Sun boosted fire moves, there's a lot going on there. However, on the other side, Vivillon. Now, I don't know if he has it, and I don't know how common the information really is, but Vivillon has a signature move called Powder, where when activated, and I believe it has priority, fire moves don't work.
Is that the one that hurts you if you try to use a fire type?
I think it is, but it's been so long now, I don't remember.
Well, and I don't think most people ever really run Vivillon because, I know that when X and Y had come out, I was all for, I want all the patterns for Vivillon, and that's it. I'm going to stop. I never got all of them.
So I think the matchup really comes down to Manectric is annoying for Charizard, Smeargle's and Vivillion's also annoying. The terrain war is going to matter a lot in trying to get off spores, but if Vivillion's carrying Sleep Powder because it's also a Pokemon that has Compound Eyes, that can sort of backfire against Patrick. So just for now, I'm going to say that Gary might have a slight advantage. It's really going to come down, in my opinion, to whether or not Pavilion can carry its weight in that team slot.
Right. And, like, I think if you're looking at Gary's team, like, that's what you're kind of expecting at that moment. So going into game one, we've got on your left side, we've got Pavilion versus Landorus there. And, Pavilion and Landorus are leading for Gary. And Kartana and Smeargle on Patrick's side.
Fair leads. I like that Patrick not only leads with Kartana is just good in the lead slot because it has pressure against a lot of things. Tapu Fini, Landorus doesn't do too much. Pavilion won't do that much. Snorlax is annoyed. While trying to apply his own sleep pressure, both players going for their sleep kind of pressure very early on.
And Kartana being one of those Pokemon that I think as an Ultra Beast has been getting a lot of usage too. Which I think took me by surprise, especially in this format for 18. So Smeargle using Fake Out into that Pavilion slot, and Landorus going to be using U-Turn onto the Kartana, going to be breaking any sort of sash that it might have as the Landorus returns back to Gary. And he's going to be choosing a Pokemon to switch into right now.
I mean, just time to think, really. It's not a terrible position pretty early on.
And we have the Tapu Fini switching in for that Landorus, going to be getting the Mystery Terrain up on the field. So, you know, any sort of Spore that might be coming out from the Smeargle in the next round won't be touching anything except that, except that Pavilion. As we have, is that Grassy?
Is Bloom Doom coming right out. I mean, it's one of the Kartana just like nuclear weapons, essentially.
No. That was
Tailwind.
So
they're both very similar dances. They both involve jumping into the air, essentially.
Yeah. So Z Tailwind going to be boosting the critical hit ratio for Kartana, and Kartana already a Pokemon that carries so many scary critical hit moves.
Yeah.
Gonna get that just going to be a monster once it gets those moves starting to connect with other with those Pokemon.
And you really see one of the annoying problems in this matchup, especially for Gary in this spot. While he does sort of have control and when sleep can be applied because he has Fini, which denies that, if he brings out Fini too early, that opens up the position for Patrick to just press Spore.
Oh, and here we go. So the Leaf Blade from Kartana after that boost, going to pick up the knockout immediately onto that Tapu Fini, getting the critical hit as well. So Gary will be losing that Tapu Fini in here. Kartana getting the Beast Boost, getting a +1 attack stage, and Spore onto Smeargle, connecting to Pavilion, affecting it because Pavilion is not touching the ground.
Yep, flying types don't matter for that terrain. Excellent turn for Patrick. Gary basically did nothing. It's just all momentum going for Patrick. He's got the speed control. He's got basically what is a null slot with Pavilion. He got the KO. So Kartana, even though now it's going to be -1, I believe, because Landorus appeared earlier, the critical hit ratio from the Tailwind, the Z Tailwind effect is still very potent. We even see the potential forfeit. He might have just misclicked. But that's definitely something on his mind. Gary's just pretty clearly not happy with his position, and I don't blame him, especially when he has a team that's sort of.
Well, you lose so much so fast.
Yeah, because he has Snorlax, it's one of those teams. Oh, he does forfeit.
Oh, man, yeah, so Gary does forfeit on here. I think that's an interesting because you can always use that game to get more information for a game, too.
And especially, I mean, we just talked about how game ones tend to kind of favor Gary because that information is so vital for his opponent. And to see a forfeit like that it's pretty devastating for a set overall. I'm like shocked that he did that, honestly.
I mean, like your mindset, too, going to this, especially losing your Pokemon so fast on there. But I think it's important for Gary to now know that Kartana has Z Tailwind, that critical hit ratio is going to be super intense, especially against that Tapu Fini. And like you mentioned before, having the ability to control when you can Spore and when you can't Spore. And I think maybe protecting that Pavilion better if he wants more use out of it is going to be a really big deal for him going into game 2.
And not only that, but a lot of these sort of pivots that Gary wants to use to probably enable his Snorlax. It's one of those primary Snorlax teams that's been seeing a lot of success lately. Alvin just won, where was that, Collinsville?
Yes.
Yeah, he just won the Collinsville Regional with a Manectric Tapu Fini Snorlax team. Essentially, Bronzong is something that can set up Trick Room. Pavilion is something that could create sleeps to set up Snorlax. A lot of the ways in which Gary tries or could try to set up Snorlax is disabled from the get-go because of Smeargle's Spore. That's why it's so vital that he has to play this very position-heavy Tapu Fini game.
Yeah. And I think that's really difficult, especially once you know that Kartana, after that Tailwind and after that
Yeah.
speed. And I don't know if Gary really has any way of answering that or making sure that he can take advantage of his own speed.
I mean, I think it's very safe to say as well that he just straight up did not expect the Z Tailwind from Kartana in that last game. He was expecting something like a Bloom Dune.
So Smeargle Snorlax being led from Patrick as Bronzong and Pavilion leading on Gary's side. I think this is an interesting adjustment for both players. And, like,
I agree. I think Bronzong's cool because it creates the possibility for Trick Room, but Patrick seeing that coming, leading Snorlax, even if he does get his Trick Room up, Matt Patrick is in a position where not only can I accept your speed changes, but make more use of them than you. Pavilion there, potentially Rage Powder, has a just plethora of support moves that it could use, but I don't know what it would really do here outside of Sleep Powder that would really change the position for him too much. I think that Patrick's lead position is dominant over Gary.
And like you said, because he did do that decision where, hey, if Trick Room happens, I can take advantage of it. So Smeargle faking out onto the Pavilion. As Hypnosis from Bronzong connects with Snorlax, is going to be asleep. That is a notoriously bad move sometimes because it misses so badly.
I mean, a normal state for Snorlax.
Yeah. Asleep.
I mean, that's something that's almost a callback to 2016. People became very comfortable throwing out Hypnosis with Bronzong, even though the accuracy might be a little messy, because the position that it can create, though risky, is so good that you're willing to take that risk. Smeargle might just be the fastest thing here. The Tailwind order in the last game threw that off a little bit.
Yeah. So Bronzong returning to Gary. We're going to send out his own Snorlax onto the field here. So we got a Snorlax and Snorlax. As Pavilion is a Sleep Powder onto the Smeargle. So both Pokemon are going to sleep over on Patrick's side of the field now.
You know, a little bit of a... If Malamar were here, it would be a topsy-turvy, essentially. We're seeing the sleep applied on Patrick now, and this is kind of what I was trying to get at in Game 1, where Tapu Fini in the back allows it so that you have decisions on what sleeps can happen. The speed control last game was absolutely essential. I mean, it was obvious in that Gary forfeited immediately, but now he's in a position where he can get his win condition in Snorlax. He can basically get that engine revving. Snorlax can start boosting and can start being in that offensive presence. What's really scary is that you have to be very aware of the sleep turns. Sleep turns, if you get an early wake up, that could be the end of your momentum right there.
All right.
See,
so
that's
there
exactly
you go.
what I'm talking about.
The Hurricane from Pavilion missing the Smeargle, who avoided while asleep. Smeargle waking up, sporing Gary's own Snorlax. So this Snorlax is now asleep. Can't do anything. And but Patrick's Snorlax is still asleep on here. But that turn one wake up from Smeargle, oh my gosh.
That's super unfortunate, especially considering that most Smeargle have Sash. You can't just go for another Hurricane. You have to go for another Sleep Powder. It's a little messy because Pavilion, even Bronzong, are reliant on low accuracy moves. And we have a position where, because Patrick's been asleep for longer, his Snorlax is way more likely to wake up first. That allows the basic containment position to have a sort of priority over the offensive one.
Yeah. Oh, so Pavilion actually going for another Hurricane. This time onto the Snorlax slot, so going to be connecting, going to do some okay damage on there. As Smeargle using Super Fang, missing Gary's Snorlax as his Snorlax stays asleep, and Patrick's Snorlax waking up and using Belly Drum. Man, this is a lot of Snorlax in the
There was a bunch of interesting stuff there. The Hurricane was nice because it just dealt just a bit more damage to make that Snorlax a more bearable. HP on Snorlax is something that you constantly need to be tracking, and if you can deal any damage to it, you should take it because it's going to matter a lot in the long run. The Smeargle Super Fang is super interesting. Not only does it create the sort of presence, Smeargle, one of the main problems with it spores, it fake outs, that's nice, but there's going to be some point where it just kind of sits there. Super Fang remedies that a little bit. You hit something, a switch in with Super Fang, you Heat Wave with your Charizard. It really helps your... Again, like, your car's on that highway now. Your engine is going.
All right, and Snorlax from Gary's side switching out into the Bronzong once more. So it's going to be taking more sleep turns, actually, if it ever switches back out into here. Pavilion sleep powdering into that Snorlax spot. Going to make it fall asleep here. So that Belly Drum, super scary once it happens. Not going to want to take any sort of attacks. But Smeargle sporing this time into the Pavilion spot. So this Pavilion will be asleep now.
Patrick either risking that... sleep allowing to happen, or just didn't want to go for the follow me. Fairly obvious that it was going to hit the Snorlax. Not terrible, though. He doesn't have or Gary that is, a lot of direct answers to Snorlax. It's something that he has to whittle down over time. That's why that Hurricane damage was kind of important, because it allows him to start that whittling process. Vivillon being asleep is not very good for him at all. It prevents his prevention of Smeargle. It really opens up Smeargle's possibilities. And even Bronzong switching out there, the sleep is, you can't stop it without Tapu Fini, which we haven't seen.
Yeah, and so Snorlax going to be switched out again for that from that Bronzong. Vivillon staying asleep on this turn as Smeargle spores into the Snorlax spot that Gary had switched out, and Patrick's own Snorlax still asleep. So you could say they're all sleeping on the job.
I mean, everyone sleeps on the job once in a while. I can't fault them too much. I mean, I do that. But what you see there is Gary trying to just create a situation in which he can wake up and reapply his pressure, but it's very dangerous. He probably has to do it, but you have to consider, and we do see it, that Snorlax waking up could be the end of the game.
Yeah. And Vivillion's waking up on this turn, going to sleep powder the Smeargle, and so Smeargle going to be asleep on this turn. The Snorlax on Gary's side is going to have to take another sleep turn, but Patrick's Snorlax stays asleep here. I think that's like what, turn 4? Okay. My bad. So Gary's Snorlax actually waking up on this turn, going to get its own belly drum and get that full attack. And it's going to be eating its own berries. It's going to get all that health back now. And I can't tell. Has it been speed ties between these two Snorlax at this point?
I honestly am not sure. And I hope that's something the players are aware of. You know, like that. Those are the kinds of things you write down in your notes while the game happens. And as I have no notes, I have not been writing that. But again, this is a very complicated situation because not only could the Snorlax wake up, but the Smeargle can wake up. The Rage Powder super safe there.
Very nice. Yeah, so Vivillon using Rage Powder, very familiar to everybody who's been watching any sort of Amoonguss match, going to be drawing all the attacks to itself. Smeargle staying asleep. Snorlax on Gary's side, going to be returning into the Snorlax on Patrick's side, going to pick up the knockout on there. So I think that was a speed tie, though.
It might have been.
Because of last turns. So going to pick up the knockout on that Snorlax, so getting rid of that that heavy damage hitter on Patrick's side. So...
I mean, that was such an important turn. The Snorlax just seemed like it was going to win. Mathematically, the odds were in Patrick's favor. He had plenty. I mean, Gary had to start this whole situation essentially from Hypnosis. That's 60%, but he had to keep using Sleep Powders. He had to use Hurricanes to even get to where he was. Like, it is easy to feel bad for Patrick a little bit. But, I mean, you expect these kinds of things when you play numerous sets throughout the day. The position also isn't hopeless. The Rage Powder is undoubtedly coming out, but didn't see the Rage Powder either.
So we have that Z Tailwind from Kartana, which came into that fainted Snorlax spot on Patrick's side. Going to be boosting its critical hit ratio and going to be having that speed control. So the Pokemon on Patrick's side will be faster for the next couple of turns here. But again, that critical hit ratio is one of the most important things in this aspect. But Vivillon hurricaning into the slot where Kartana is, picks up the knockout on there.
I mean, Kartana's paper-thin special defense really hurting it there. A Smeargle does wake up. If Hurricane had missed, Patrick could have reversed that entire situation.
All right, and so the Spore into the Snorlax spot, so it will be asleep. And I feel so bad for Kartana because, like, it has so much potential, but, like you said, that special defense where it just...
Gary's playing to his outs. He's doing what he needs to do. Tapu Lele comes out, and that makes a ton of sense, Psychic Terrain. But what you really have to consider there is that the adjustments, because it's looking like it's becoming a situation where Snorlax on Gary's side should just win out.
Right.
But if I'm Patrick or anyone in a similar situation, that wasn't... It's heartbreaking, but it's something that you were going to recover from because a lot had to go Gary's way for this to get to where it was. So if you can stick to your guns there and try to just replay it, because the math, more often than not, will favor you in the long run.
And I think a huge part of it, too, is, you know, making sure you're keeping track of all those sleep turns as well.
Yeah.
Like, that is so hard, I think, too, especially when you have something like this team where both teams are constantly using something like that. And so Vivillon Rage Powdering again is going to draw all attention to it as Smeargle Super Fang connects into that Vivillon slot, gets it into the yellow as Tapu Lele Psychic is most likely actually going to finish this Pokemon off. So Vivillon going to be finally knocked out, and Snorlax is going to be still asleep here.
I wouldn't be surprised at all by Tapu Fini. It might even need to be. But what you could see, if Tapu Lele is strong enough, even outside of Psychic Terrain, a Super Fang Psychic double tap or Moonblast might be able to KO the Snorlax, especially if it doesn't wake up, then you will KO it.
Yeah.
So you're not totally out of the game, but Bronzong.
All right, yeah, so Bronzong, I mean, no, those hypnoses like might actually work. And Tapu Lele, though, like that Life Orb on Psychic Terrain, that is huge. And I think if you have a chance to reset that terrain and take away even a little bit of Tapu Lele's power, there might be reasons, like, you know, maybe Gary has reasons maybe why he's not bringing Tapu Fini if he has it in the back.
Right.
But I think for him, maybe banking on those. Oh, Ally Switch from Bronzong.
I completely forgot about that.
Okay, so Snorlax and Bronzong switching spots as Smeargle Super Fang goes into the Snorlax spot. And
was that a read?
Was that
was a read? Oh my God.
So he does pick up the knockout right there. Oh my God.
That was brutal.
Oh, no,
that was exactly the kind of hard read you needed to win that game. Manectric comes out, there was no Tapu Fini. That was
God.
Oh my.
All right, so that ally switch, you know, in the end, hurting Gary right there, as Manectric is the last Pokemon revealed on Gary's side.
That was delicious.
It wasn't if you were Gary.
Even if you're Gary, you gotta admit that was pretty good when you press ally switch.
Yeah, that was a Mega Manectric coming from Gary's side of the field. Going to have Intimidated its ability now, and it will be lowering the attack stage on both Pokemon on the other side. But, you know, Tapu Lele being a special attacker, not too really hurt by that. That Smeargle has been putting in work, though.
I mean, we also have to consider it's not completely over because Ally Switch plays can still win if Manectric can build up enough damage.
Ooh. So Spore from Smeargle connecting onto that Bronzong as Manectric protects on Gary's side. And this Tapu Lele is now going to be using Psychic into the protected Manectric spot. So, yeah, like you said, Gary, not out of this spot, not out of the game yet.
Not completely, but it is very difficult because he absolutely relies on Bronzong to beat Tapu Lele. You're not going to be able to whittle it down through Life Orb alone. You need damage on it, and Gyro Ball will easily pick up a KO there. The Spore pressure, really just oppressive. We haven't seen Follow Me or anything, but because Smeargle runs Sash, I would say 99% of the time, Manectric needs 2 turns to be able to damage it. Oh, Snarl!
Ooh. Yeah, so Snarl connecting with both Smeargle and Tapu Lele going to be lowering their special attack stat, which, you know, again, for Lele is actually super important.
Yeah.
Especially with that Psychic Terrain and the Life Orb boost. As Super Fang from Smeargle connects with Bronzong and Psychic from Tapu Lele going into the Manectric spot, going to do some heavy damage, and it's actually almost enough to pick up the knockout, but not quite. That Snarl showing its importance right there.
All right, this is the deal breaker turn. If you can KO Smeargle right now with Manectric, you can win this game with Bronzong. We haven't seen all the moves yet. We've only seen 3. It could have Protect, Spiky Shield, some variant. If he does and he presses that, Tapu Lele gets the KO on Manectric. Easy. Oh, he goes for the overheat.
Has overheat, and it is going to be connecting with that Tapu Lele. Is almost enough to knock it out. Gets it into the red as special attack. Harshly falls on the Manectric. Smeargle sporing into the Manectric slot, so this Manectric will be asleep as Tapu Lele
but if Bronzong wakes up, it's still...
Psychic into the Bronzong slot does no damage on there. And Tapu Lele getting that chip damage still on that Life Orb. And Bronzong stays asleep on this turn as the Psychic Terrain disappears. So Tapu Lele will not be able to benefit from that as much anymore. Oh, man.
Well, that timer is so low, you need to move immediately. Bronzong is still super threatening because you can only whittle it down so fast. That Snarl earlier was so important because it just makes you so weak. You have to make protect plays with Tapu Lele.
All right, Manectric staying asleep. Bronzong avoiding the Super Fang from Smeargle as Tapu Lele Psychics into the Manectric spot, picking up the knockout on here. So it is this asleep Bronzong, or at least we think it's still asleep, as Tapu Lele gets knocked out from the Life Orb. And is Bronzong waking up this turn? Bronzong waking up. And we have a Z move. Oh, my God. What is happening right now?
It's probably Z Trick Room or
Z
something of the
Hypnosis.
sort.
Oh, wait, not Hypnosis is sorry, my bad. So with Shattered
Psyche.
What?
Styling on him for the KO.
All right. Okay.
But
oh my God. Is it going to be enough?
That is very interesting information. Not only was that game absolutely crazy, and there's a lot to take in, but if that thing just used Shattered Psyche, that means that he didn't, or at least probably because we saw Hypnosis, Ally Switch, Psychic, And trick unless he's
right?
with no hypnosis is already on there.
Yeah.
Unless he doesn't have hypnosis, he ditched gyro ball, which means that he couldn't actually hit Tapu Lele that entire time.
Wow,
so
that was that game too.
This kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where I mean that was very much an emotional situation, but the math there was not super in favor of Gary. I think that Patrick can stick to a pretty similar strategy, just maybe being a bit more proactive. The Snorlax lead, interesting, but maybe not quite what he needed. Just trying to change it up because he had just used the Kartana in the previous game for that quick victory. I think that trying to repeat that process is worth doing because the math for Gary is not there in the long run.
Yeah. And like Gary, I would like to say, was really favored in terms of those sleep turns on Patrick's Snorlax. So that Snorlax just sat there the entire time and was asleep for so long, even after getting the belly drum and then getting put back to sleep. So once more on your screen, guys, on your left side, Gary has a Vivillon, Snorlax, Manectric, Landorus Theron form, Bronzong, and Tapu Fini. On your right side, we've got Patrick with Charizard, Smeargle, Tapu Lele, Landorus Theron, Kartana, and Snorlax.
I think that we'll probably see a similar route taken by both players for this game. I think that Gary very much, just looking at this team, is someone that is accepting that these things can happen, that you're going to miss, and he's going to risk it and be comfortable with that. You kind of need to go for those things again. The information has changed to a point that favors Patrick a little bit. The Z Psychic on Bronzong is huge because now you know that to some extent you can kind of ignore it. The ally switch is the main intimidating factor there from Bronzong.
But I mean, if you can call those ally switches like we saw in game 2, like that was just,
we know that Patrick
ridiculous.
is capable.
Yeah, and that's, I think, it's one of the hardest things. Like, what are the mind tricks of ally switches? Once you show it, when are they going to use it again?
Exactly.
And like, it's so rough. So Tapu Fini and Manectric from Gary in this third game lead as Patrick leads with Smeargle and Snorlax once more.
Interesting change-up from Gary. You can see that he doesn't want to play this sleep game anymore, maybe not comfortable going with those sleep turns as they were. And, of course, because he probably considered, and correctly so, that Snorlax would lead again, he could lead these two Pokemon that didn't care too much about that situation. Better to cut off the sleep pressure early on and just apply your own sort of containment, because Manectric is something that is pretty annoying, both the Smeargle and Snorlax, and then you get the Intimidate, you get something that could leave, injure Smeargle, break a sash, and then have Tapu Fini do basically whatever it wants.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, too, is Snorlax not getting the belly drum. Like,
yes.
That's your big thing right here. So Mega Manectric from the get-go on Gary's side. Once more, we'll be having the Intimidate onto both Snorlax and Smeargle, going to be lowering their attack by one stage. Excuse me. So going to try to figure out how he's going to stop that Snorlax from getting a sort of belly drum up and fake out from Smeargle actually into the Tapu Fini slot. So this Tapu Fini is going to be flinching this turn as Volt Switch from Manectric connects with that Snorlax and goes back to Gary.
He'll probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he finally brought his Landorus, but you might see something like, I don't know, another Snorlax maybe. But the Intimidate, he's trying to stack them quick. I wouldn't be surprised by a belly drum, but the Smeargle support is just so good. We haven't seen Follow Me. It's still a possibility. He only showed 3 moves. He's in a position, thanks to the fake out, where he can just press belly drum turn 1, and he'll be at a pretty decent position, thanks to Gluttony and the berries healing factor.
And Gary's own Snorlax is going to be hitting the field here as Tapu Fini flinches on here, and Patrick's Snorlax is going to be using belly drum, going to get that max attack on there, and it is going to be in the yellow, but going to be eating that berry, going to be recovering a lot of that health, and now we have a scary Snorlax on the field on Patrick's side.
I would absolutely love to see Patrick Smeargle use Heal Pulse as his fourth move, because Snorlax is in just such a great position on Patrick's side that he could definitely sweep the rest of Gary's team with that belly drum boosted Snorlax, but because he's eaten the berry already, he could use Recycle and just take that extra turn to try and redirect or mitigate damage done to Snorlax with the Smeargle, but Snorlax is in sort of a place that it can, if not end, greatly change the game before it really gets going.
Yeah. Well, Smeargle Heal Pulse would be like really kind of fun. But Snorlax from Gary's side switching into the Vivillon. So this one, if the Spore does come, it will get hit by it. But Smeargle on Patrick's side showing that last move as Follow Me, going to be drawing all the attacks from this Tapu Fini into there. So Tapu Fini using Moonblast, going to be connecting with that Smeargle. Leaving the Snorlax free to attack. It picks up the, shows the Focus Sash on Patrick's Smeargle right here. And gets a special attack drop, but...
I mean, that's cool.
And
nice.
the return from Snorlax into the Pavilion spot. So this Pavilion also showing its Focus Sash and holding on with 1 HP.
A little interesting bit of positioning there by Gary. Get out your Focus Sash Pokemon to take that hit him with a Moonblast, but the finally revealed redirection on Patrick, perfectly timed. He preserved that the entire set, able to keep Snorlax healthy for at least another turn. And now you have a situation where Pavilion can redirect and you can ditch that, but he actually...
Oh, the Hurricane from Pavilion missing the Snorlax
wow.
into the voids, and the Super Frank from Smeargle connecting with Pavilion, picking up the knockout onto it. So this Tapu Fini is going to be using Moonblast into the Snorlax slot, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. And it is going to be taking attack from Snorlax. Oh, no.
Yes.
Uses Recycle from Patrick Snorlax on here.
Excellent turn for Patrick. I love the use of Super Fang there. If he switches in, that's 50% of his health gone. If he stays in, because we know that Focus Sash activated, that's a KO. And it's super risky. Not only do you risk going for Hurricane on a 1 HP Smeargle, but it's a 70% move. Like, that could definitely miss. The Super Fang was just an excellent tool there.
All right, and Manectric hitting the field for that Fallen Pavilion. Intimidate onto both Smeargle and Snorlax, so that Snorlax is going to be at -1 from its 6 attack stages right now. This Tapu Fini is still sitting here at full health, but this Snorlax now at full health and at almost max attack still, showing just a lot of pressure.
He's going to need something strong to take out that Lax. Maybe his Landorus is in the back with a Z move or a Choice Band or even a Life Orb. He needs something that threatens that Lax harder.
All right, so Smeargle using Following Me, going to be drawing any sort of attack from Gary's Pokemon. Going to protect that Snorlax a little bit, but the Volt Switch from Manectric into the Smeargle, going to be switching out for whatever Gary's last Pokemon is, so it might be that Landorus, and we might be getting like sort of an Intimidate cycle onto here.
I mean, I really would not be surprised by Bronzong again, resisting the normal attacks, being immune. Oh,
I forgot this is not X-Man.
I just didn't expect him to go to it, really. Moonblast coming out, maybe fishing for crits a little bit.
And, going to be, so Moonblast connecting to Snorlax as the Snorlax uses Return into the Snorlax spot that Manectric just switched out of. Going to be losing, Gary going to be losing his Snorlax on that turn. Ooh.
I mean, there's just so much pressure on Patrick's side. Really, if you look at Gary's team, he doesn't have a lot that just stops fake out Belly Drum from Snorlax turn 1. Last game, he was worried about Bronzong, but the anti-sleep situation kind of helping Patrick in that he can't just sleep Snorlax and try to work around it.
All right, and then Tapu Lele from Patrick's side going to be switched in for that Smeargle as Manectric and Tapu Fini just go against these two Pokemon. I totally forgot that we already knew all of Gary's 4 Pokemon. So the Intimidate once more onto that Snorlax.
Oh my.
We definitely have been shaken by these first 2 games enough to forget how to count. So Tapu Lele really benefiting from that Psychic Terrain, though. And that Life Orb damage is ridiculous.
I mean, now even if he has if he can even land critical hits that could remove Snorlax, he has to deal with Tapu Lele, who even just dodging that Snarl is a huge threat on its own.
All right, so Manectric Snarling missing the Tapu Lele, which is what it wanted to hit, takes the Psychic from the Tapu Lele on this train, gets knocked out really easily by that as Tapu Fini goes for the Moonblast. Going to be doing damage, but it will be just this Tapu Fini versus a Snorlax and this Tapu Lele as Snorlax goes for the Recycle on Patrick's side, going to be eating that bear, going to be recovering a bunch of its health again. Yeah,
free 50%. Snorlax just really has the potential near endless HP. Its HP stat is huge. Its defenses are huge. Recycle with a 50% berry. It can stick around a long time, and that's what we've just seen here. It's so hard to contain Snorlax normally. Yeah. Snorlax is I think one of the best Pokemon in the current format right now. But you really see that even though Gary's using a team that plays around Snorlax, he still has problems dealing with opposing Snorlax.
Yeah. And this game going to Patrick as Tapu Lele and Snorlax pick up the KO on Tapu Fini. So going to be knocking out, and round 3 will be going to Patrick Smith. But I think what was super interesting about that game 3 was Gary understanding that he doesn't want to sleep battle, but Patrick never going for it, even with the Tapu Fini on the field. Like, he just understood, hey, right away, like, this Snorlax is going to be what I'm going to use to win.
Well, that's part of what's so scary about Smeargle, that even if he goes for the anti-sleep game, he still has other tricks to enable an offense. The fake out and either Z tailwind or belly drum. We never saw Charizard, but he could have even pressed fake out. Now I'm going to overheat. That's a KO.
Yeah.
There's so many quick offensive tools that Smeargle allows for that Patrick's team has setup modes and just quick burst modes. I think that the change in strategy from Gary was pretty interesting. In Game 3, it's clear that he knew himself that the math didn't really favor him there, and he wanted to change that into a situation where he didn't need to rely on it anymore. But what you get from that is a situation that enables Snorlax to set up much easier. One that was mitigated a lot by the sleep situations in Game 2.
Well, and I think Gary did a really good job Game 3 trying to preserve his own Snorlax.
Yeah.
It was just, some of those misses that do happen were just very unfortunate for him because now he's at this point where his Snorlax, his Pavilion, missed that Snorlax, and now he has to switch into the Snorlax and take these hits. And, you try to get the Intimidate so that Snorlax is less threatening, but there's not much you can do. Like, it is a bulky Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's at almost full attack, and it can recycle its health back consistently. Like, just kind of really showing why Snorlax is one of those Pokemon that is going to stay pretty dominant in this format.
Yeah, I expect it to be around pretty much all season.
Right.
Great game to both players. We're moving on to round 4. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Right. Bye. Thanks for joining us. Man.